Welcome to Girlfriend's Bible Study, a live Bible study with Connie and friends. Each week, Connie and her girlfriends engage in a lively conversation as they read and study scripture. So grab a pen, your journal, and your best friend and enjoy this enlightening Bible study.
Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Oh boy, this month is going fast. The year is going fast. We're already in February. I can't even get over it. I'm trying to figure out what year it is, what day it is, what week it is, and it's just moving along. So that's all good. We're still here. That's the good news. So welcome to Bible Study Live with Connie and friends. And you'll see my friends popping in a minute. I'm going to try to do a shorty tonight. Does have a lot to do to get done still. It's Thursday and my to-do list is not to done. So we're going to keep going. Anyway, we have been talking about love stories in the Bible. And last week, I shared an overview about a bunch of different types of love stories in the Bible. Some good, some not so good. Here's one of my sisters now coming in. We talked about all kinds of love stories last week. When you're yoked with the wrong man, the wrong woman, Delilahs, the Jezebels, the Ahabs, the Nabals. Sometimes you just got the wrong person. We also talked about Ride and Die, Ananias and Sapphira. Stuck together through it all, though. Anyway. But we also talked about some sweet love stories and love stories that aren't just romantic love stories. There are platonic stories in the Bible, or emotional love in the Bible, between besties, between a mother-in-law and her daughter-in-law. And so we're going to talk about some of those today. And today's topic is still under the love stories in the Bible topic, but it is unbreakable bonds. And I was thinking about that since I knew we were going to be talking about Naomi and Ruth and a couple of others. But unbreakable bonds, it's just such a powerful thing. And I think we all have friends like that ace boom, that one that we don't say nothing negative about. It doesn't matter. Their characteristics that somebody else might think of as negative. We just take that as part of who they are, and we don't speak ill of them. And there are other people, whether they are friends or spouses or siblings or, mothers-in-law or daughters, where we do say, oh, drive me crazy, all of that. But there are those people that we never do that with. And there are examples of that in the Bible where don't speak ill of each other. Don't ever speak ill of each other. It's not because they have them on a pedestal. It's not because they're perfect. It's just because they love them that much. They don't have anything negative to say. Our mom used to always tell us, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. I'm sure all of y'all, most of y'all heard that. But it's not always easy to walk out. I'll say that. There are some people that make it easier than others. And I thought about that. I thought about marriages that don't last, but friendships that last all your life. And I get that you're not living with them 99% of the time. I understand some of that. There are times when, because I've seen sisters who lived together and they didn't get married, or maybe they widowed early or something. They just, move in and just keep it pushing and just enjoy each other. I think that is so sweet. And I've seen best friends. I've had besties and have besties where it doesn't occur to me to speak ill of them at all. It just doesn't occur to me. The bond is unbreakable. And so I was thinking about one of my favorite shows, and it popped up in my memory feed during this month, which it makes sense, it's February, but Heart to Heart. Heart to Heart used to be one of my favorite shows. Favorite. It's really kind of cheesy. Like when you watch it, it's a little bit cheesy. Some of the stories are kind of interesting, but in general, it's got a little cheese to it. What I love about it, and what I realized I loved, is that they never, ever, Jonathan and Jennifer Hart, they don't ever speak ill of each other, ever. Don't ever give each other the side eye or the snark. And they laugh together. They still laugh together, but they don't, not ugly to each other. Oh, I can't believe you're asking me to do this. I can't believe she told me to blah, blah, blah. Never. But even when something that seems unlikely has occurred, one of them comes and says, honey, this is what happened. A UFO appeared in the backyard. The other one's like, well, let's go find it. There's no to own eyes, babe. They don't even go there. They immediately just have each other's back. Just immediately, you saw it, it was there. Just each other the benefit of the doubt. Nothing can come between them. There was one episode where somebody showed up on their doorstep saying, this is your son. You got me pregnant however many years ago. And Jennifer was like, okay, come on in. He's looking at her. She's like, if he's yours, then I embrace him. I'm not judging you based on what happened before we were married. She was not moved. He wasn't like, I beg your pardon. How come I'm just now hearing about this? All those stank comments. None of that. It's like, come on in. Let's figure it out. And stood right by her husband. She said, if this is a thing, we're going to handle it together as husband and wife. That's the kind of relationship, that's the kind of marriage I want. But also it's the kind of, in general, relationships that you want, where you just have each other's back, period. Those unbreakable bonds, you're not ever speaking ill of each other. It's just such a powerful thing. So I'm going to read a couple of scriptures tonight. The first is going to be Ruth, and we're going to go to Ruth chapter 1, and we're just going to read chapter. It's not very long, but it sets the story. It sets the stage for the relationship and helps us understand the love that Ruth had for her mother-in-law, Naomi. So verse 1, it says, in the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name, Naomi. The names of his 2 sons were Mahlon, and Chilion. Here's his name. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judah. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judah. They went to Moab and lived there. Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died. She was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpah, and just so y'all know, that is the name that Oprah was named after, but her mama spelled it wrong. Orpah is actually who she was trying to name her after, but her name ended up being Oprah. Yes, that is the truth. I heard it from her mouth. So one married Orpah and the other Ruth. After they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died. Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. It's jacked up. Her husband and her sons, all 3 died. It was horrible. When she heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food for them, Naomi and her daughters-in-law prepared to return home from there. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living, set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah. Then Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show kindness to you as you have shown to your dead and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband. She kissed him. They wept aloud, said to her, we'll go back with you to your people. Naomi said, return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons? Who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has gone out against me. They wept again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. But Ruth clung to her. Look, said Naomi, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her. Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. There I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and me. You talk about unbreakable bond. When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. So the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. The women exclaimed, can this be Naomi? Don't call me Naomi, she told them. Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I love how they change your name based on what happened. It's like, I'm not even going to be called by my name anymore. Call me Mara. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me. So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. So that is the beginning of the book of Ruth. That's chapter 1. And, last week, my sweet sister was talking about her beautiful daughters-in-law. One is a daughter-in-law to be, and one is a daughter-in-law already, daughters in love. And she said, they are my daughters, period. They are my girls. And, God forbid anything ever happened with them and my sons, because they gonna be my daughters no matter what. No matter what. And that's what our sister Latrice was saying, the same thing, that her relationship with her husband's mother, her mother-in-law, is exactly the same. It's like, you're my daughter. You're the daughter I never had. And that's just it. She said, we have a Naomi and Ruth relationship. And that is so precious. It's so precious. That is unbreakable. I just love you. Your family now. That's the piece of it, is your family now. Even if my son's like it with Naomi, her sons died, or God forbid somebody get divorced, it's like, but now you're family, period. You're just family. So yeah, the bond between us is just going to be what it is. I remember even Gina, of course, has a fun love story. So she and her boo have been together, married, divorced, back together again. And I remember the first time, mom, dad, auntie, they were like, well, he's still part of the family, so good luck. We adopted him as our son from jump. So sorry, things didn't work out between y'all, but we keeping him. So, and as Gina likes to say, they had an unsuccessful divorce. That's also hilarious. I just love it. They had a couple of them, unsuccessful ones, but it's really a blessing. It's apparently it's an unbreakable bond, right? Apparently it's just an unbreakable bond. The next scripture I wanted to read was about Jonathan and David, King David and Jonathan, and they were like brothers. I'm going to read a little bit from 1 Samuel. There's a lot to go over, so I don't want to read all of it, but in 1 Samuel 19, 1-7, you kind of get a sense of it. So Saul told his son Jonathan, all the attendants, to kill David. But Jonathan was very fond of David and warned him, my father Saul is looking for a chance to kill you. So they didn't have an unbreakable bond, right? Saul and his son did not have an unbreakable bond. Jonathan and David did. So Jonathan's allegiance was not to Saul, it was to Jonathan. And Jonathan's allegiance was to David, not to Saul. So it's really interesting. It's like, I'm not going to just let him kill you. Oh, dude, that's not going to happen. So he says, be on your guard tomorrow morning, go into hiding and stay there. I will go out and stand with my father in the field where you are. I'll speak to him about you and will tell you what I find out. Again, Jonathan's allegiance was to David. Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul, his father, and said to him, let not king do wrong to his servant David. He has not wronged you. What he has done has benefited you greatly. He took his life in his hands when he killed the Philistine, Goliath. Lord won a great victory for all Israel. You saw it. We're glad. Why then would you do wrong to an innocent man like David by killing him for no reason? Saul listened to Jonathan and took this oath, and surely as the Lord lives, David will not be put to death. So Jonathan called David and told him the whole conversation. He brought him to Saul. David was with Saul as before. Now, I'm going to tell you, in the next verse or two, that oath goes right out the window. He sends a spear hurtling toward David, trying to kill him. It's messy. He has one of his daughters married. It's messy. Messy boots, as my baby would say. It was messy boots. But then, if you go to Samuel 20, a lot of stuff happened. It's a whole chapter about David and Jonathan. And I don't want to read the whole thing. I'm looking at the time. But I'll start at the beginning and I'll skip to another part. So in verse 1, it says, then David, he had to flee again. David fled Naoth at Ramah and went to Jonathan and asked, what have I done? What is my crime? How have I wronged your father that he is trying to take my life? Never, Jonathan replied. You are not going to die. Look, my father doesn't do anything great or small without confiding in me. Why would he hide this from me? It's not so. But David took an oath and said, your father knows very well that I have found favor in your eyes, and he has said to himself, Jonathan must not know this or he will be grieved. Yet as surely as the Lord lives and as you live, there is only a step between me and death. Jonathan said to David, whatever you want me to do, I'll do for you. What I love about that part right there is sometimes, somebody has made a decision about somebody. Let's say they think, like in this situation, the thought that Jonathan's like, no, my father would have told me. He would have told me if there was a problem. And instead of saying, therefore, David, you must be wrong, and I don't even believe you, and how could you? It's like, trust you. The bond was unbreakable. He was like, but I trust you. What you want me to do? How you want me to handle this? I believe you. I believe you. Kind of trust. See. So anyway, David gives a whole plan, and he says, look at verse 5, it says, so David said, look, tomorrow is the new moon festival, and I'm supposed to dine with the king. Let me go and hide in the field until the evening of the day after tomorrow. If your father misses me at all, tell him, David earnestly asked my permission to hurry to Bethlehem, his hometown, because an annual sacrifice is being made there for his whole clan. He says, very well, your servant is safe. But if he loses his temper, you can be sure that he is determined to harm me. As for you, show kindness to your servant. You have brought him into a covenant with you before the Lord. If I'm guilty, then kill me yourself. Why hand me over to your father? Never, Jonathan said. If I had the least inkling that my father was determined to harm you, wouldn't I tell you? So he said, it asked, who will tell me if your father answers you harshly? So they figured it out, how they were going to find out. They were going to use a kid. And look at verse 16. Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, may the Lord call David's enemies to account. And Jonathan had David reaffirm his oath of love for him because he loved him as he loved himself. And so sure enough, he goes, he hides. Jonathan has dinner with the king. And sure enough, in verse 27, it says, but the next day, the second day of the month, David's place was empty again. Saul said to his son Jonathan, why hasn't the son of Jesse come to the meal either yesterday or today? Jonathan answered, David earnestly asked me for permission to go to Bethlehem. And so he said all the things he was supposed to say. And look at verse 30. Saul's anger flared up in Jonathan, and he said to him, this is so deep, you son of a perverse and rebellious woman. Y'all know what that means, right? You know how we say it in modern times, right? Just gonna put it out there. What he said was, you son of a perverse and rebellious woman. Yeah, we know how that goes. Don't I know that you have sided with the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of the mother who bore you? As long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. Now send and bring him to me, for he must die. And they get into, what does he die? What has he done? Saul hurled his spear at him to kill him. Then Jonathan knew that his father intended to kill David. He's like, you know what? I'm out of here. You done lost your ever loving. So he got up from the table in fierce anger. He went out and spoke to David. And if you look in 41, they had the whole, if the boy does this and sends the spears and blah, 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 blah. So the boy did that. And it says in verse 41, after the boy had gone, David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed down before Jonathan 3 times with his face to the ground. They kissed each other and wept together, but David wept the most. And Jonathan said to David, go in peace, for we have sworn friendship with each other in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord is witness between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever. David left, and Jonathan went back to the town. And later, Saul ends up dying. He tries to take his own life, and it mostly does. Jonathan dies in a battle. David hears about it, and he writes a lament. 2 Samuel, chapter 1, look at verses 25 and 26. He says, how the mighty have fallen in battle. Jonathan lies slain on your heights. I grieve for you, Jonathan, my brother. You were very dear to me. Your love for me was wonderful, more wonderful than that of women. And, he ended up with Bathsheba, though, because, it was a whole other situation. But that kind of friendship, that's not like just a romantic love that, a man and woman have, but that is just, you are a soulmate of mine. You can have a soulmate that's not romantic. You can have somebody that is truly just knit in your heart like that. I've had friends like that where they literally are just in my heart. They're just in my heart like that. The last one I wanted to share, just because I find it interesting, is you guys, the story, so I don't really have to read it to you, but I'll show you where it is. It's in Daniel 3, verses 12 through 30. It's about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and I'm just going to talk about them. So Daniel 3, verses 12 through 30. That's what I'll put it in the chat later. But didn't bow down and worship the king. The idol that Nebuchadnezzar had made. They didn't do it. And when they got called on it, it could have been like, that woman, that serpent, like they could have gone there. Didn't. We're like, no. We're not going to do it. We serve our God and our God only, and he can save us. But even if he does not, we will not bow down and serve you. Together they went. They stood with each other, didn't throw one under the bus. They stayed together as friends. And even them saying, I'm not going to do that. They want us to bow down to this. I'm not doing it. And they just did what they'd always done. They worshiped the Lord. Of course, they got thrown into the fiery furnace, and the people who threw them in burned up. And then they came out together, not smelling of smoke, any of that. And the king said, all right, well, anybody who speaks of their God has to be cut in little pieces. There's some violent little kings back in the Old Testament. But let me just say this, and in the New, I'm not even gonna lie. Not only did they have an unbreakable bond with each other, they had an unbreakable bond with God too. They're like, nothing is going to make me speak against you. I don't care if it means my life. I'd rather give my life than speak against our God to some idol. I'm not gonna do it. That means you throw me in the fiery furnace, so be it. And in we go. What I'm not gonna do is break the bond I have with my God. I love that too. Love that they didn't break it with each other and they didn't break it with God. And even, as we know, we read the story of David and Bathsheba and what went on and went down. He, at that point, broke a bond, his word to the Lord. He was restored, but in terms of being a priority above them, like having the best interest of that person, that soulmate, You have that unbreakable bond with no matter what happens to you. If David had been able to even keep it in mind when the Bathsheba thing, he could have been like, you know what, I got this bond though, this unbreakable bond with God. I can't be messing around over here. Like it's just a decision we make or don't make that can bear that bond. Now it can, restored. We can have a restored bond. It's not necessarily that we are speaking against them, but we can break the bond where we're not choosing best interest over ours. Whereas these examples of Ruth with Naomi, Jonathan with David, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego not choosing themselves, saving themselves, or anything. They didn't break their bond with each other. They didn't break their bond with God. It's powerful. It's really powerful. Those soulmate relationships, like I said, I mean, it's wonderful. I can only imagine what it's like when you have it in a marriage. But no matter what, friendship, having that in friendship and certain family relationships, like mother and daughter-in-law relationship, it's just so sweet. It's so sweet, and I just love it. So it's a favorite love story in the Bible, Unbreakable Bonds. And I'm going to bring my sweet sister onto the screen. There she is. Hi, sister.
Hey.
Hey. Do you have anything you want to share or add or mention?
Just that it's a blessing to have one relationship like that in your life. If you just get one, and yeah, and I will say that clearly having an unbreakable bond with somebody doesn't necessarily mean that you never say an unkind word about them and they never say one about you, because sometimes you just find out that that bond is unbreakable no matter what y'all turns out. So, and you get sometimes to the point where even if someone speaks in anger, you're like, you don't mean it. I know how you feel about me. You have shown me how you feel about me over and over again. So, yeah, you go, yeah, you're mad. I see you mad. I'm gonna let you cool off. We'll talk again.
You okay?
Right, get you your cape. You'll be super mad. But yes, that's exactly right. So, yeah, but it is a blessing to have those bonds that those people in your life where you're like, yeah, this one, what do they say? Your good friend will call a lawyer, but your best friend will be sitting in jail with you.
Exactly. Got the shovel and the dirt under their nails. They're like, well,
we got busted.
Right, exactly. Honestly, even though they were wrong as two left shoes, I kind of admired Ananias and Sapphira. It's like, what's the story? That's what we saying. Let's go. Like, dang, both y'all dead now, though.
But it didn't work for him. That's all right. I told him we were going to tell this is what we were going to do. That's what I told him. That's what I'm doing.
That's what we said we were going to say. That's all I'm saying. Yep. Yeah. Anyway, it's interesting. It's interesting. Oh, my Bible. I want pages if I fall out.
No,
it's okay on the outside.
It's well loved. It is well loved.
It is well loved. It is well loved. Like when I see it's like the pages aren't like matching anymore,
Oh, yeah, that whole verse, that whole book is separate. Wow, you thumbed through that one a number of times. It's interesting.
That's because it's about. Wait, there's even tape. I don't know if you can see the glossiness of the tape.
Yes, you taped it up.
I taped it because it's all about. I mean, that's the beginning to that's Adam and Eve, but Genesis, of course, has Joseph in it. Joseph is my dude.
Joseph is your dude.
He's my dude. So there's certain places where it falls open to Proverbs and falls open to Joseph, and yeah.
I know of a couple who got married, and he came from a tradition of revering the Bible in a way that said that you read it, but you treated it like I don't know, I guess like you would an encyclopedia. And he married a woman whose Bible was dog-eared, thumbed you know, page folded up, writing in there. He was like, "What have you done to your Bible?" And she was like, "This is how you love the Bible." I mean, from her tradition, it was just interesting the difference between the two.
Is
He just wrote it down like it's a notebook. She was like, "It's every book to me."
Yeah, I have some writing in here. I don't write in it a lot. I do have some writing in here.
She circled some parts, highlighted some parts.
I've got a lot of highlights. I have a lot of highlights, but only a little bit of writing. And so, yeah, highlights all throughout. All throughout.
It's an interesting relationship.
I
You know,
do.
and recognizing that that they both loved the Bible, but the way they showed that love was different. And he got to it. He didn't. At first, he saw her way of showing love as disrespect, but he got to it. She loved her Bible more than he loved his.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Certainly. No. It depends on how we do it. And I agree. Anyway. Thanks everybody for tuning in about love stories in the Bible and unbreakable bonds. And I look forward to seeing you next week. We'll talk about husband and wife relationships because next week is Valentine's Day. So I'm gonna have to get into the romantic love next week. So we'll talk about that. Have a great night, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching.